Hi there, I've come to a place that's a village that's on the canal road as you leave Chiang Mai. It's on the way out to Mae Hia. It's a place called Chiang Mai Lakeland. There are a couple of lakelands in Chiang Mai, but this is the one out on the canal road out towards Mae Hia. I've come here because I want to continue the story I introduced you to, mentioned last week when I was at Wat Pratet Doi Cam. I talked about a friend I lost. He was murdered. He was actually murdered just over here. The man's name was David Crisp. He was a lovely guy. He came from the UK, and immediately I met him. I struck up a friendship with him. He was such a nice guy. Well, in 2004, when I came to Thailand, I started a 2-year self-quarantine really. I didn't go out very much, and when I did go out, I went out my own or with Dai, or we were just with family. So I didn't really mix with anybody, and I started volunteering with Care for Dogs. Care for Dogs was very useful for me because I could meet dogs and also start to meet people. And although it was a bit of a bad experience as far as people were concerned really, it actually introduced me to various avenues that I could then follow up on and take my sort of direction from, and it was good to actually get out. Whilst there, some people came along that enjoyed dogs, liked dogs, and they also had a classic car. Well, it was through that association that I ended up in taking photographs and also starting a website that really never got off the ground because they didn't know what to do with it. They didn't know how to, what they wanted of it. And I started with Classic Cars of Lana, the car enthusiasts up here in Chiang Mai, going out on a jaunt around northern Thailand in these classic cars, just sharing a ride with various people, different cars. I'd start the journey in one car and end up in 2 or 3 others. And it was on this on these club outings, I met David Crisp. He was riding around in a BMW at the time. He also had a Citroen, and I remember him telling me about the trials and tribulations of his Citroen blowing up on him, and we would talk about all sorts of things because we seemed to have an affinity. We seemed to have something in common. I didn't have a classic car. I really wasn't interested in having a classic car. It was, I was just there because I'd been invited along to come and take some photographs and also do their website. Well, David and I used to meet on a regular basis because being part of the website and taking photographs, I was asked also to become part of sitting on their committee meetings. And David was, I believe, the treasurer of the committee. So the monthly meetings we had, we'd sit and have a chin wag about things, and then maybe every now and again we'd go off for coffee somewhere and meet up at each other's homes. It's obvious to me because I've got my radar that David was gay. I met David in 2007 and therefore I've been here 3 years, and it was fairly recent that I had actually come to Thailand after having been eat, sleep, drinking, breathing as a female in my life in the UK. Here I entered as a woman and carried on presenting as a woman for a little bit because it was expected of me, I felt. But when I met David, I was actually transitioning backwards into being more male again in my dress, in my outlook. But all the same, I was a little bit feminine, and that must have really rubbed up against the boundaries that the people I was meeting with at that time, they were not prepared for me. Do you know, after many years of thinking about this, there is a very interesting observation I've made, and that is when you transition from male to female, for all intents and purposes, you're actually doing it for yourself because you actually want to leave something behind. You actually want to make yourself content. But for men, looking at you, they've got a real problem. They've got a problem because it's their God-given right to look at a woman, and especially when they're having a conversation with your top, they think it's okay to fancy you, or to think, you'd get me excited if I thought about it long enough, or maybe I've got a God-given right to think I could see myself with you. Well, I challenged that, didn't I? And other trans people challenge that as well, because the male, especially the alphas, they've got a real difficulty in accepting that they, in actual fact, are possibly having to distinguish between a male and a female they can and cannot like. Then it makes them think, oh dear, am I gay? Oh dear, is there a boundary being crossed here on my alpha male side? It's really, really weird. But all the same, I must have pushed some buttons with people when I first came here. As I say, I knew that David was gay, and he and I shared a lot of interest about how we felt about people. I had something in common with him because he was vulnerable. He had left the UK only the year before, 2006, and he'd come here as a professional, leaving the UK as a music teacher in Scotland. He was finding his feet here, and he wanted to express himself and be him. And we really wanted to both find that, I think. And it was really comforting that we could talk about, being ourselves here, being who we wanted to be as individuals. We wanted to just enjoy being ourselves, not having to conform to somebody's requirements of us, not conforming to society. Well, David lived in a home just across the way there, the other side of the water, in a little estate area there, and it was by no means a small house. Like a 2 or 3 bedroom home. He shared it with a boyfriend, and I went there on a couple of occasions, and we chit-chatted about what we needed to do for the website, and try to put the world to rights. After a while, he got fed up in that place. I think the contract or the rent was getting a bit silly, and he decided that he'd move. Well, he didn't move too far. He moved the other side of this water, and he moved into this road here. He wanted to get people together to sing, and as a music teacher, he was a composer. He was a very accomplished, music teacher. He actually enjoyed people performing. Well, he wanted some space for that, and this place was ideal for that. There was more space, there was more rooms, there was a better facility for him to entertain there. And I remember going to a party there, and there was a lovely presentation. He could have his piano there, and he could sing himself, and also he could play very well. Get his friends to perform. He and his choir performed places in Chiang Mai here, and people loved this enthusiasm, this pleasure that he showed, that he had for music. And he was loved. He was really, really loved. He moved to this place over here, and that was a really start of the downfall for him, because of the space that was here. He actually entertained people coming in and staying. Maybe, just maybe, he was a little bit insecure on his own, and therefore wanted people around him. Sadly, he invited the wrong people into his home, and this home here is where he lived. He lived here for about 6-8 months from having moved from the other side there, and on 21st night, 22nd morning, January 2009, his car was found. His Citroen car had been picked up by the police, and they came here and tracked down the owner and they found him bludgeoned to death. His throat had been cut, and in killing him, the people that had done this awful thing had not just run off with his car, they'd taken a safe and other valuables from the house, goodness knows what, and they did a runner. Well, I'll leave a link below to a couple of websites, a couple of stories that will, not just back this up, but actually fill you in a bit more detail. But apparently, there were 3 of them. Now, 2 of them were caught, and one of them was actually sentenced to death. And he was very, very fortunate. That death sentence was commuted to life in prison. The other guy, he was convicted of handling stolen goods. But the 3rd person in the trio, the alleged trio, was a guy called Jack. Not a Falang Jack either. This guy is still on the loose. The guy who apparently did the murder. He's still out there. He has not been caught, as far as I know, and the reports from the police that you can see in the links below say that they know who he is, but they just can't find him. Well, for regular viewers of my channel, you will know that this is not the typical type of video I do. Today's video is it's a little bit sad, but it's factual, and it's a real video about what has happened here and my experience, the relationship I had with the deceased and how I feel about it. So it's not fiction and it's not sensationalized, I hope, and yeah, it's a sad memory. I started the discussion over on that mountain over there, looking over this way at Wat Pratet Doi Kam, looking across the valley, travelling down the canal road, passing this village. I never fail to think about poor David. I started this video for the 3rd time over in a coffee shop across the way there, and with the weeks ago, my mailboys there tried to erect a video. I was doing an umbrella. I nearly lost my rag and throw the camera in this lake, and it nearly didn't happen. But finally, I'm bringing this video to you. I want to thank you for watching this and all my other videos, and I'm very, very, very heartened by the amount of people who are subscribing recently, and I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. Take care. Bye-bye.